What's up guys, welcome to the third and final part of my rewrite for Transformers Dark of the Moon. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2 yet, then you should probably go check those out before watching this video. The links are in the description below. Normally I provide you guys with a recap of what happened in the previous videos, but since we already have so much ground to cover, I'm just going to dive straight into the rewrite this time around, so if you guys need a refresher, you'll just have to check out parts 1 and 2 for the full story. Okay, here we go. Act 3. Just like in the original film, Paick will succeed in infiltrating the occupied city of Washington, D.C. that has become the Decepticons' base of operations on Earth. With him are Epps, Burt, Donnelly, and a handful of Navy SEALs, all of them armed with the illegally modified weapons that were apprehended from the Geddes brothers in part 1 of this rewrite. Chip, meanwhile, will set up a computer in Autobot City, serving as Team Goldbug's mission control alongside Director Fairborn, who has dispatched Linux with reinforcements to Washington to support Team Goldbug. All of the humans in Washington have been rounded up and sent to a prison camp where they are awaiting transportation to Cybertron to be enlisted as the Decepticons' new workforce. Shockwave is overseeing the distribution of oxygen masks and backpacks, similar to the exopacks used by the humans in James Cameron's Avatar, to help the prisoners breathe on a foreign planet. These masks will allow the humans to survive Cybertron's atmosphere while also not restricting their mobility or slowing them down like an astronaut suit would. When Paick and his team are spotted by a Decepticon sentry flying an orbital assault carrier, the Autobots will come out of nowhere to their rescue, just like they do in the original film, where they will reveal how they outsmarted the Decepticons and have returned to fight for their friends and for their home.
For today, in the name of freedom, we take the battle to them.
Since they are severely outnumbered, the Autobots come up with a strategy to help even out the odds. They're going to launch a two-pronged attack. The Autobots will work on disabling the Decepticons' greatest asset, which is their fleet, while at the same time, the humans will work on liberating the presidential cabinet in the White House, and if they're lucky, Carly as well, so that the Pentagon can call in the rest of the US military to join the battle. That is going to be Phase 1 of the plan. Phase 2 will feature the Autobots using guerrilla warfare to pick off any survivors from the destroyed fleet to rendezvous with their human allies at the White House. The Autobots plan on using the empty buildings as cover to conceal their progress towards the space bridge. Phase 3 of the plan will see the combined Autobot and US forces marching to the space bridge together and disabling it. Wheeljack will display this battle plan as a hologram simulation, not only as a visual reference for the rest of the Autobots and humans, but also as a visual reference for the audience as well, so that they can keep up with the battle plan and understand the geography of the following action scenes. As Steven Spielberg says,
"Geography is one of the most important things to me, so the audience isn't thrown into chaos trying to figure out the story you're telling. The audience needs to be clearer than you. I can create suspense if the audience knows where all the players are and they know what the stakes are. The suspense of that sequence is letting the audience know geographically where everybody is at all times."
Before he leaves the group, Mirage will take a moment to say goodbye to RC. They'll casually clasp forearms, as RC promises to take Mirage out for an oil bath on Cybertron once the battle is over and their planet is restored.
Eager to leave Earth so soon.
I thought you were the one who wanted to go home the most out of all of us.
Mirage takes a look down at Paick and the rest of the humans, before turning back to RC and shrugging his shoulders with a smile.
This planet isn't so bad.
Mirage pauses to look around the war-torn and damaged city of Washington.
Besides, the sad part is, all of this reminds me of home more than anything else. What do you say we help the fleshies out one last time?
RC smirks.
Be safe.
Mirage will then salute Bumblebee and Optimus as he prepares to execute Phase 1 of the plan. We cut over to the White House, where Carly is being held prisoner with a watch bot on her wrist, forcing her to stay by Dr. Arkaville's side until everything plays out. After all, she is his prized protege. It would be a waste to see her throw away her talents and her future on something as immaterial as humanity. Soundwave will oversee Dr. Arkaville undergoing surgery at the White House's medical unit. Tiny Decepticons like the Spider Medic, known as Scalpel from the original version of Revenge of the Fallen, will crawl and skitter around Arkaville's body as they operate on him, as we hear the whirring of saw blades and see sparks fly. The operation is complete. Dr. Arkaville rises, and we see that he has become something of a cyborg. His face is still intact, but the rest of his body is now robotic. He kind of looks like RoboCop, but his head and his heart are the only human parts left behind from his old body. We now see that Arkeville is trying everything he possibly can to become more and more Cybertronian. With his new cybernetic body, his white lab coat, and his fringe of white hair, Dr. Arkeville will now fully look like his iconic G1 counterpart. He looks at his reflection reverently in the mirror, glorified that he is starting to abandon his frail humanity and embrace a new Cybertronian identity. Realizing that she's got only one way out of this, Carly feigns compliance and understands Dr. Arkeville's motivations, agreeing with him that the Cybertronians are demigods, and under their stewardship, the plague that is humanity will be cured and corrected. Dr. Arkeville is proud to see his apprentice finally warming up to him, as he anticipated she would. We're going to keep the scene from the original film where Carly spies on Sentinel Prime and sees him threaten Megatron and remind him that they are only temporary allies, nothing more. This partnership is something Sentinel is not proud of, and he doesn't trust Megatron in the slightest. After all, Sentinel holds Megatron responsible for Cybertron's decay, and he sees Earth's invasion as Megatron cleaning up his own mess that he created. This isn't a redemption, it's a check of accountability. To further cement this, Sentinel will confiscate the fallen staff from Megatron, reminding him that the staff's power can only be activated by a prime, something Megatron will never be. Megatron's fingers itch to attack Sentinel, but he's perceptive enough to understand that his opponent is in possession of two superweapons: the Starsaber, Sentinel's original double-sided sword, and the fallen staff. Megatron is just outmatched. He bites the bullet and submits to Sentinel's authority. Mirage will take Wheelie and Brain's place in this rewrite as the Autobot who disables the Decepticon fleet. If the Autobots manage to remove all of the warships out of the way, it will rob the Decepticons of their greatest asset and help even out the odds for the outnumbered Autobots. Wheeljack has conjured up a virus that will shut down all of the Decepticon ships, but it needs to be directly uploaded to the mainframe of the fleet's flagship, which is the Nemesis, so that the virus can spread to the rest of the fleet. Because of his cloaking technology, Mirage is the only Autobot who stands a chance at infiltrating the Nemesis, so he volunteers to be the saboteur. Wheeljack will quickly repair the damaged orbital assault carrier that they shot down earlier, and Mirage will fly it up to the flagship. Since Wheeljack only did a quick patch job, the carrier combusts again on the way up, and Mirage has a hard time piloting it as he curses Wheeljack under his breath. Over intercom, Mirage will request the Nemesis for docking permission so that his ship can be repaired. They grant his request, and Mirage will crash land inside the hangar, causing as much chaos as possible. Over intercom, he tells the other Decepticons that he's lost control of his ship as he continues to purposefully roll around the hangar and crash into other docked fighters. Crews of protoforms rush over to Mirage's assault carrier to assist their fellow Decepticon, but when they open the cockpit, they find it empty. There's no one there. The crew members look at each other with puzzled looks. Using his arm blades and cloaking device, Mirage will sneak through the Nemesis and assassinate any crew members he comes across with his wrist blades. But in one of the scuffles, Mirage's cloaking device is damaged, and his invisibility begins to flicker on and off. Mirage makes it to the control room and begins uploading the virus, but right after he inserts the chip, Mirage is suddenly shot in the back, and he turns around to find protoforms swarming into the room.
Haha! Show me what you got!
Mirage will shout as he charges into the throng of Decepticon warriors. One by one, all of the enemy ships begin falling from the sky and crashing down on the streets and buildings of Washington down below.
If I don't get to return home, then neither will you!
As the Nemesis tumbles down into the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, and everyone on board gets tossed and thrown around. The Nemesis implodes upon impact, consuming Mirage and the rest of the crew in a fiery explosion as bits of the ship go flying everywhere. The Decepticon fleet has been destroyed. RC will watch the Nemesis go down in despair, and she'll break away from the others to go inspect the wreckage, calling out for Mirage. The rest of the Autobots will cheer at first, but once they realize Mirage isn't answering their calls and that his signal went offline, their victory immediately sours. Ratchet will scan through the wreckage of the Nemesis with a holographic device on his arm, but nothing shows up on his readings, and he turns to Optimus and mournfully shakes his head before looking back at the wreckage.
Not another one.
RC's voice cracks as she keeps on combing through the rubble, but Bumblebee will gently pull her away from the ship's ruins, telling her that Mirage is gone. With a roar, Ironhide kicks a pile of rubble and aggressively punches a large piece of debris before chucking it into the distance.
You're going to pay for that, you bastards!
RC falls down to her knees, and her head drops.
He just wanted to go home.
Bumblebee will wrap his arm around her shoulder. He is home. He's one with the Allspark now. Optimus comes up alongside the two scouts.
We will not allow his sacrifice to be in vain. Mirage has given us a fighting chance. Let us make sure we honor it.
On the other side of DC, Sentinel Prime will be assembling the pillars of his space bridge, while Shockwave powers it up with the Allspark, reporting that the space bridge, once activated, will consume an enormous amount of energy that such a process would have normally required a vast amount of energon. Thankfully, they have the Allspark to help conserve their fuel supplies. Sentinel will impatiently snap back at Shockwave and remind him that he designed the space bridge and is intimately familiar with its functions. He does not need Shockwave's help. Megatron will oversee this process, and out of earshot from Sentinel, Shockwave will pull his liege aside and ask what their backup plan is in case the space bridge fails to deliver Cybertron. Before Megatron can respond, Shockwave proposes an alternative strategy that is admittedly radical, yet logical. If an allegiance with one prime is not suitable, perhaps an alliance with another will yield more satisfactory results. Because if Sentinel's space bridge fails, perhaps a truce with Optimus and a combination of the Autobots' knowledge and resources would be Cybertron's best hope for salvation. Both armies have been dwindled down to skeleton crews. A possible union could help conserve resources and manpower, but Megatron insists that their plan must succeed. They cannot afford any more mistakes or setbacks. It's all or nothing now. Megatron is trusting Shockwave, his most competent lieutenant alongside Soundwave, to see Cybertron delivered safely. Shockwave, hesitant yet loyal, swears that his lord's will be done. Megatron leaves to observe the human prisoners awaiting to be the space bridge's first travelers. Just as Megatron begins to toy with the humans and entertain himself by frightening them, he receives multiple reports from panicking Decepticons that their ships have gone offline. He looks up to see the warships in the distance crashing down into the streets of the city. Shocked, Megatron is about to investigate when he receives new reports that the Autobots have returned. Outraged at this impossibility, Megatron quickly adapts on the spot and begins commanding his forces to take up their positions around the city to flush out the enemy. We cut back to Team Goldbug and the Navy SEALs jogging through the streets of DC. We're going to replace Carly's rescue and the collapsing skyscraper set piece from the original film with Team Goldbug infiltrating the White House to free the president and his cabinet. I want to take a moment to note that Burt will replace Hardcore Eddie from the original film as our big guy archetype, who simultaneously serves as the comedic relief throughout this sequence. Team Goldbug cautiously scoured through the empty halls of the White House, realizing that this infiltration was way too easy. There's not a soul in sight. One of the TV monitors on the wall suddenly transforms into Laserbeak, and he attacks the group. Through teamwork, Spike and Team Goldbug will successfully gang up on Laserbeak and kill him by popping his head off before moving on. They find the president and his administration alone in a room, only to be quickly outflanked by Dr. Arkeville, Carly, and Reflector, who has separated himself into 3 different versions of himself. Arkeville will gloat that Reflector spotted them coming from a mile away and that they stupidly fell for his trap, but Carly surprises them all by grabbing Dr. Arkeville's robotic arm and jamming a pin into the wiring. The arm malfunctions, and it emits an EMP that temporarily disables all 3 reflectors along with Carly's watchbot. Arkeville will backhand Carly and fend off Team Goldbug by transforming his undamaged cybernetic arm into a cannon and firing at them as he hits a switch on the wall and disappears behind a secret exit. Team Goldbug will then dispatch all 3 immobile reflectors by placing Cybertronian grenades known as boomsticks down each of their throats, blowing up all 3 of their heads one at a time. As we see Dr. Arkeville running through an escape tunnel, he contacts Rumble through the intercom on his good arm and informs him that they've been compromised and he needs an extraction. Team Goldbug will then encourage the president, as commander-in-chief, to call in the rest of the US military and launch a counterstrike. But before the president can even reach a phone, the entire building begins to shake as the White House collapses in on itself. Nobody understands why, but the whole structure is coming down. Everyone tries to escape the damage by running out into the street, racing against a crumbling building. But nobody within the presidential cabinet is as physically fit and in shape as Team Goldbug, and all the slow-footed politicians are consumed by the falling debris as Spike, Carly, and the rest of the soldiers barely leap to safety. But before the heroes can even register the fact that the president and his entire cabinet is dead, Team Goldbug finds themselves out of the frying pan and into the fire as they see Rumble down the street from them, hammering his pile drivers for arms into the ground, giving birth to the small earthquake that just destroyed the White House. As the humans prepare to fight back, Rumble is suddenly reinforced with air support from Ratbat in his alt mode, firing down at the humans as he flies past them, forcing them all to retreat and take cover within nearby buildings. Standing on Rumble's shoulder and steadying himself from the earthquake, Dr. Arkeville will cackle, "Run, run, run as fast as you can." Believe it or not, I actually like a lot of what happens in the Battle of Chicago in the original film, so we're going to keep most of the same story beats in here as well. The Autobots will carry on with Phase 2 of their battle plan, quietly sneaking through the empty streets of Washington, moving from building to building to remain in cover, while Optimus flies above on his jetpack as air support. But Bumblebee and the other Autobots will fall into a trap as they enter an abandoned building, only to set off a proximity alert. They quickly realize that there are explosives rigged all around the interior of the building, and they quickly flee and take cover in another building, only to find this one equally rigged to blow. One after another, multiple buildings across DC explode, giving away the Autobots' position. The driller suddenly bursts out of the ground without warning, having found its prey. Optimus is able to fly down and lure the driller away from his friends, but the Autobots still find themselves surrounded by a swarm of Decepticon protoforms, led by Soundwave.
Soundwave reporting. Operation Infestation is a success.
Shockwave replies back over intercom.
Then my theory that the Autobots would deploy hit-and-run tactics was proven correct.
Well done, my lieutenants. You both do me great honor.
Megatron announces as he joins the conversation.
What are your orders, my liege?
No prisoners, only trophies.
Seeking cover, Team Goldbug will arrive just in time to be corralled with the rest of their Autobot compatriots by Rumble, Ratbat, and Dr. Arkeville. The tables have turned, and the heroes have lost their advantage. They're all surrounded. It's game over. The same execution scene from the original film will take place here. Optimus will try to fly back to aid his friends, but he is intercepted when the driller wraps a tentacle around him and squeezes, crushing his jetpack. One by one, the Autobots are lined up for termination, and the Decepticons proceed to execute Wheeljack the same way Key was killed in the original film. They are about to kill Bumblebee next, but the whistling sound of missiles suddenly reaches their ears. Soundwave shouts,
Incoming!
As the street is bombarded with explosions. Spike turns, and through the smoke, he sees a squad of Nest Ospreys flying their way, and he waves them down with a flare. Ratchet will then jump up and pump his fist into the air as he cheerfully laughs and calls out over the intercom.
You were right, Chip! It can't rain forever! Oh, bless the Allspark!
We cut to a reaction shot of Chip responding with a wholesome smile before we transition back to the battle. Sentinel Prime activates the space bridge and begins the process of teleporting Cybertron into the Milky Way galaxy, placing it within Mars' orbit. The sight of his home that he has not seen in ages completely disarms Megatron as he is frozen in place with wondrous disbelief. He becomes so transfixed with this miracle that he doesn't even pay attention to his comlink, where the Decepticons are scrambling to address the new wave of Nest reinforcements and are repeatedly requesting orders from Megatron, but he doesn't hear any of that. All he hears are the memories of his old life as he just stares up into the sky, captivated by Cybertron's glorious return.
Cybertron, you are saved. At last.
Meanwhile, the Nest reinforcements and Team Goldbug will work together as the snipers aboard the Ospreys will take out the Decepticons' eyes before Team Goldbug and the SEALs rush up and jam boomsticks into their ankles, blowing out their shins and allowing them to finish off the downed Decepticons with RPGs and ion cannons. Rumble will try to retaliate with his pile drivers and attempt to scatter his enemies with another earthquake, but he falls prey to the same nest strategy of being blinded by snipers, crippled by boomsticks, and then finished off by ground troops. Ratbat and the rest of the Decepticon flyers transform and try to engage the Ospreys in an aerial dogfight, but they're also pushed back by a barrage of missiles, picking them all off from the sky one by one, damaging Ratbat's wing and grounding him, but not killing him just yet. Since Sam had a moment to shine in the original trilogy when he managed to kill Decepticon all by himself just by being resourceful, I don't want to steal Spike's thunder in this rewrite, especially since defeating a Decepticon single-handedly in combat will be a huge step in Spike's character arc for this version of the story. So, this is going to be Spike's chance to prove himself that he can be just as worthy and heroic as the Autobots. So with that being said, Spike will pick the grounded Ratbat as his target, and he'll proceed to kill him the same way that his Bayverse counterpart did with Starscream in the original film, blinding him with a grapple hook to the right eye before being tossed around for a bit, allowing him the chance to stick a boomstick into Ratbat's remaining eye, causing the Decepticon's head to explode. Meanwhile, Optimus will manage to cut himself free from the Driller's tentacle with his Energon sword, and without his jetpack, Optimus tumbles down on top of the floor of a parking garage, breaking his fall with a somersault. The Driller rears up and roars ferociously, looking like one of the great sandworms from Dune, before lunging down to devour the Prime. Optimus will yell out an epic war cry to challenge the Driller before charging forward, swinging his sword with one hand and holding up his shield with the other as the Driller swallows him up. The Driller suddenly convulses and jerks in agony as it combusts from the inside out, and Optimus bursts out of the side of the war beast, the energon of the Driller dripping off of him like blood, as the monstrous creature gives out a final moan and collapses limply. This scene is basically the Cybertronian equivalent of a knight slaying a dragon. Meanwhile, out of everyone left in Soundwave's initial garrison, Soundwave will be the last one standing. First Laserbeak, then Reflector, now Rumble, and Ratbat have all been neutralized. Soundwave has lost all of his minions. He corners Bumblebee on the roof of a tall building, instigating a rematch as he growls,
"You and I have unfinished business, little bug."
referencing the last scuffle Bee and Soundwave had all the way back in my Transformers 1 rewrite. Soundwave will fight with his tentacles in the same way that Doc Ock does against Spider-Man, with Bee using his small size and nimble agility to dodge and flip around the extra limbs. Using his stingers that Wheeljack equipped him with in the Transformers 2 rewrite, Bumblebee will shock one of Soundwave's tentacles, briefly electrocuting the Decepticon officer. A tentacle wraps around one of Bee's arms, crushing his stinger before yanking his left arm from its socket. Just as another tentacle lunges for the killing blow, Steeljaw will leap to the rescue and pounce on the tentacle, gnawing away at it. RC will slide forward and grab another one of Soundwave's tentacles, holding it down with her entire body.
Ratchet!
The medical officer rushes forward and grabs a third tentacle.
Ironhide!
The weapons specialist finishes off a wounded protoform and immediately catches on to the unspoken plan, so he runs up and he grabs the last remaining tentacle with both hands. Soundwave looks around to find himself trapped as the Autobots have all of his tentacles pinned down. Soundwave will then power up his sonic weapon, ready to unleash his signature wave of sonic energy to blast the Autobots away and free himself. But before he even gets a chance to do that, Bee will rush forward and drop-kick Soundwave with both feet, disconnecting Soundwave from his tentacles as a Decepticon officer plummets off the edge of the building and down towards another building down below. As he falls, Soundwave's sonic blast discharges, causing his plan to backfire as the building he crashes through shatters and collapses in on top of him. Soundwave disappears as he is swallowed up by an enormous mountain of debris and does not resurface, his iconic voice echoing down below as he gives out his final cry.
No.
Bee will look down triumphantly and open up his mask as he says, "Soundwave inferior, Autobot superior." The climax. Ratchet will then offer to patch Bee up, but the sergeant insists that he's fine and that his repairs can wait as he grabs his amputated arm and tucks it into a compartment on his back. The little Autobot shows heart as he transforms his remaining arm into a cannon and charges back into the fray, leading the others into the final push on the space bridge. Meanwhile, Optimus, axe in one hand, ion cannon in the other, will jump down and join his comrades on the street as they sprint towards the barricade surrounding Sentinel Prime, Shockwave, and the control pillar, with Prime forming the tip of the spear as he and the rest of the Autobots epically charge in a V-shaped formation. Optimus will order Nest over Comlink to liberate the human camps and to evacuate all of the prisoners while they keep the Decepticons focused on them. Squads of protoforms will man the barricade and unleash a barrage of gunfire on the Autobots, forcing them to take cover. Since the Bayverse films had a habit of portraying Optimus as a bloodthirsty war criminal, I thought it would be best if for the following scene where Optimus executes that badass kill streak from the original film, Optimus was actually swapped out with Ironhide. Especially considering the route I decided to take Ironhide's character in this rewrite, it just makes more sense for the old veteran to be the one who goes on a bloody warpath in this scene. Anyways, the Autobots become pinned down by squads of protoforms atop the barricade, who are keeping them from reaching the control pillar. Ironhide will fearlessly stand on top of a garbage truck, facing down enemy fire as he unloads his minigun on the Decepticons until it is completely out of ammo, initiating a kill streak as he breaks through the Decepticon barricade all by himself. He'll jump over the barricade wall into a horde of enemy soldiers, activate his flamethrower for a bit before chucking it at a nearby protoform, draw out Leadfoot's chainsaw gun, and shout,
"For Leadfoot! For Topspin! For Roadbuster!"
as he charges forward and begins chopping down the Decepticons like weeds. The battle rage consumes Ironhide, and none of the Decepticons stand a chance against him in this berserker state. One Decepticon will try to attack Ironhide from behind, but is suddenly mauled by Steeljaw, who in turn is backed up by RC. Without mercy, Ironhide will viciously cut through the Decepticon ranks with his chainsaw, shaking off any gunfire or wounds that the Decepticons may inflict on him. Ironhide switches between using both of his wrist cannons and his knife, turning himself into a one-man army. Ironhide will then steal Optimus's original line,
"You die!"
as he tears out the throat of the last protoform standing. While all of this is happening, Spike, Carly, and the rest of the Nest ground forces manage to break into the camps and begin setting all of the prisoners free, since the protoforms originally assigned to guard the humans were redirected to protect the barricade around the control pillar. But now that those bots are dead, the humans can make good their escape on the Ospreys as they begin landing on the streets and Nest agents begin loading up all of the citizens. Spike looks over and sees an opening for the space bridge control pillar, the Allspark pulsing with raw energy as Cybertron emerges more and more through the portal up above. Shockwave and Sentinel are too preoccupied with the battle to notice Spike. He could slip right in and disable the whole thing. He picks up one of the Geddes brothers' illegally modified guns and begins running towards the space bridge, but he is stopped as Dr. Arkeville walks out in front of him, cannon arm raised. Spike and Arkeville will then get into the same scuffle that Sam and Dylan do in the original film, and the fight will go down the same way with a few minor changes, since Arkeville now has a robotic arm instead of a handgun. Credit goes to this Comet for this idea. Arkeville will call out, "I just saved a whole other world, one that is superior to ours. You think that you can stop me? You think you're a hero?" "No, I'm just human," Spike replies as he blasts Arkeville with the Geddes brother gun, sending the scientist flying into one of the space bridge pillars, where he gets brutally electrocuted like a fly on a bug zapper, and his fried corpse drops to the ground. Catching Shockwave's attention, the Decepticon prepares to crush Spike under his giant foot when he is suddenly tackled by Ironhide. Ratchet and Bumblebee will then vault over the barricade and destroy the main control pillar the same way that they do in the original film, abruptly ending the transference of Cybertron into our atmosphere and pushing the dead planet back through the portal from whence it came. This doesn't destroy Cybertron like it does in the original film, but rather, this just returns the planet back to its original place in the universe, light years away from Earth. Seeing Cybertron suddenly push back through the portal and vanish from his sight, Megatron is broken out of his trance. He collapses to his knees and longingly reaches out to the stars, heartbroken. We cut back to the main battle, where Optimus and Sentinel will fight each other the exact same way that they do in the original film, while Shockwave fights off the rest of the 5 Autobots on his own, using both his arm cannon and his shield, which, true to Shockwave's name, are both equally equipped with the ability to emit shockwaves as weapons. So while these two duels are happening simultaneously, Sentinel will get the upper hand over Optimus and prepare to kill him, when Megatron rushes in and shoots Sentinel in the back with his fusion cannon and begins to mercilessly beat the crap out of Sentinel. Sentinel Prime is out of the fight. The following exchange between Optimus and Megatron as they stand over the conquered Sentinel will more or less be the same scene that was scrapped from the original film, but survived in the Dark of the Moon's novelization, where Optimus and Megatron negotiate a truce. What's really cool is that a YouTuber by the name of Theoremus, I don't know if that's how you say it, but that's how I'm going to say it, Theoremus, he brought this deleted ending to life with a fan-made 3D animation, which I thought was really cool. So, even though I would change some of the dialogue, here's more or less how this scene would play out.
You felt it. You must have felt it. The draw of our world. It called to you as forcefully as it calls to me. The difference between us is that I was willing to answer that call.
No, it was never about Cybertron, any more than it was about Earth now. It was always about you. Whatever nobility you may have once had, or think you've had, was long consumed by your overwhelming need to dominate all you see before you.
Such pompousness from you, Prime. Your sanctimoniousness would be more impressive if we did not both know that the two of us are very much alike.
We are nothing alike.
I wanted to control Cybertron because I thought I was right. You fight me because you believe you are right.
I am tired of your control.
And I am tired of fighting. I sue for peace, Optimus. I will order all Decepticons to stand down. It is over. All this is over. Even endless war must end sometime. Our world calls, and I will devote my existence, and the existence of all Decepticons, not to attacking you or humans, but returning to our homeworld. I have spent far too long destroying, and it has brought me nothing. Nothing. So I wish to try creating for a time, and see if that brings me something.
And am I supposed to believe your words? I am supposed to accept this call for truce, after all the lies and deceits, after all the attempts to lay waste to an entire world.
Honestly, Prime, it does not matter to me what you believe.
I also want to take a moment to share that during this conversation, Megatron will humbly acknowledge that this armistice could only be possible because of the room Prime has in his spark for mercy, a trait that Megatron still considers to be a weakness, because if the roles were reversed, Megatron doubts he would have deigned to even listen to Optimus's parley. But perhaps that is why Optimus is the greater leader.
I understand that was a long time ago, Prime. But we were brothers once, Optimus.
Megatron will then literally outstretch his hand towards Optimus, extending the hand of friendship. As Optimus and Megatron shake hands, the Lord of the Decepticons will address all of his remaining forces over intercom and order a ceasefire. Optimus does the same for the Autobots. Confused, both parties grudgingly obey, cautiously staring each other down as both of their leaders summon them to converge on their location. Once all of the Autobots and Decepticons arrive and are reunited with their leaders, they stare at the sight of Optimus and Megatron standing side by side over a defeated Sentinel with uncertainty and bewilderment. Both Optimus and Megatron begin to explain to everyone present that Cybertron will never be restored so long as Autobots and Decepticons continue to wage war on each other. An armistice has been agreed upon, and both sides are to lay down their arms immediately. The Autobots and Decepticons exchange distrustful glances at one another, receiving this news with mixed reactions. Soldiers from both armies begin to argue and protest against this treaty, but Optimus interrupts them. Optimus reminds everyone present that Cybertron's golden age was the best time to be alive on Cybertron. Their civilization had reached its peak, and their people had excelled and advanced to such greater heights in comparison to other species on other worlds, because at the time, all Cybertronians had worked together. Cybertron has only thrived when all of its children cooperate together. Whenever that cooperation is disturbed, such as in war, the planet suffers. While it is true that too much has happened for either side to ever truly forgive the other, for the greater good of their homeworld, they need to unite in order to secure the future of their species and the legacy of their people. As both Autobots and Decepticons take in Optimus's words, they reluctantly agree that there is truth in what Prime says, and at the end of the day, they all want the same thing. They all just want to go home. Shockwave steps forward and announces that he sees the logic in this decision and supports it. Grinding his teeth in retribution, Sentinel stealthily reaches for the fallen staff. Striking like a viper without warning, Sentinel jabs the staff into Megatron's back while everyone else is distracted, blasting a huge beam of energy through Megatron's torso. The Warlord collapses weakly to his knees, grasping at the large, smoldering hole in his stomach as Energon spills freely into his hands. Optimus retaliates by chopping Sentinel's arms off with his axe, before kneeling beside Megatron, who is solemnly joined by Shockwave. With his last breath, Megatron reaches out and holds onto both Optimus and Shockwave, and has them swear on their sparks to fulfill their shared mission of restoring Cybertron together. Optimus and Shockwave both give their word, as the light fades from Megatron's eyes, and the notorious Lord of the Decepticons, a champion of Kaon, and a veteran of multiple wars who has cheated death so many times, finally goes offline to become one with the Allspark. Optimus grimly turns to Sentinel, who lays helplessly on his back.
Optimus, all I ever wanted was the survival of our race. You must see why I had to betray you.
Optimus regards his old mentor with disgust.
You didn't betray me. You betrayed yourself.
Optimus turns and steps aside as Ironhide menacingly approaches Sentinel. He coldly raises both of his arms, aiming his cannons at Sentinel's face.
No, Optimus, please!
Ironhide blasts Sentinel in the head once with each cannon, completely obliterating him and scattering the shards of what used to be Sentinel's head across the cement. Satisfied with their avenging retribution, Ratchet supportively places his hand on Ironhide's shoulder. In the span of a few minutes, both Sentinel Prime and Megatron, legends in their own right, have been slain. History has been made here. The resolution. Director Fairborn will then contact everyone, both human and Autobot alike, over the intercom, and inform them that by law, as her last act as director of Nest, she has to arrest everyone who wasn't a part of Lennox's reinforcement battalion and prepare them for their court-martialing. But, in return for just liberating Earth from Decepticon occupation, she gives the Autobots and Team Goldbug a head start. Optimus tells Fairborn that he understands her difficult position and thanks her for her generosity, before bidding farewell and commanding the surviving Autobots and Decepticons to transform and roll out. Refusing to turn their backs on the Autobots, Team Goldbug will become disillusioned with the US government wanting to punish them for their patriotism, and they decide to go into hiding with the Autobots. Epps will ask Lennox to join them, but Lennox insists that unlike the rest of Team Goldbug, who are all bachelors, Lennox just can't leave his wife and daughter behind, and he states that he's lucky enough to not get any heat from the higher-ups, because technically, he was only doing his job and following orders when Director Fairborn defied the government's decision to decommission Nest. After all, she was the one who deployed him and the rest of Nest to the battle. The Navy SEALs will agree with Lennox, and they will choose to stay behind as well, willing to take their chances in court, and they salute their comrades as Lennox says goodbye to his friends and watches them drive off into the sunset. We see Optimus take a moment to collect the relics of Cybertron from the battlefield, and as he claims Sentinel Starsaber, we see it transform. The Starsaber will change from being a double-bladed Thanos-looking sword into a knightlier two-handed longsword in response to Optimus's touch, almost as if the sword was alive. We also see Prime add the fallen staff and the Allspark itself to his collection before he drives off. We now cut to the final chapter, the epilogue. The epilogue will show the surviving protagonists rendezvousing at the same cemetery where all of their fallen Autobot and Nest agents are buried in the dead of night. Shockwave and the remaining Decepticon protoforms will be present as well, standing at a respectful distance away from the Autobots and humans. While standing over the graves of Sparkplug, Jazz, Sideswipe, Sunstreaker, Jetfire, Blur, and the ashes of the Wreckers, Optimus will reflect on his people's current position and the paths that now lay before them. He'll take a moment to honor Mirage and Wheeljack, whose remains could not be retrieved. Optimus was relieved to announce that the war between the Autobots and the Decepticons has finally ended. But there is still conflict that they must overcome. Without a means of leaving Earth, and with the natives having turned against them, Optimus advises that they must all separate and go into hiding. Their time as Earth's defenders has passed. Thanks to the Autobots trusting the humans enough to share their technology with them, the human species now has the potential to pose an actual threat to the Cybertronians. Because of this, they must now become robots in disguise. As the Decepticons take their leave, all of the Autobots and humans will take a moment to share emotional goodbyes with one another. The most heartbreaking goodbye will be the one between Spike and Bumblebee, who has had his severed arm reattached thanks to Ratchet. Spike reveals that he can't just leave Carly's side, and he plans on sticking with her. Bumblebee will ask Spike if he wants him to come along so that he can protect both of them. It'll be like old times, B says, but Spike will profess that it will be easier for B to blend in without having two human fugitives to slow him down. Besides, Spike has finally realized his own worth, as well as Carly's, admitting that he used to rely on the Autobots for everything, but he realizes that he is capable of independence now, stating that both he and Carly will be just fine watching each other's backs. This will be the end of Spike's character arc, as going through the trial that was the Battle of Washington has helped Spike overcome his need, which was to believe in himself. Bumblebee will commend Spike for his personal growth as Spike hugs Bee's face and they fist bump. "I'm gonna miss you a lot, buddy." But like a brave man once said, no sacrifice, no victory. As he transforms and drives off into the distance. Wiping away his eyes of tears, Spike and Carly will look up at Optimus as they get into their getaway car.
I hope we meet again someday, Spike Witwicky. It has been an honor to call you my friend. May fortune favor your travels.
As all of the humans, Autobots, and Decepticons scatter to go their own separate ways, Optimus looks up to the stars and gives out a new message, editing his previous call to any Autobot refugees that he made back at the end of my Transformers 1 rewrite. Now, here at the end of our rewrite for Transformers 3, Optimus warns all Cybertronians to stay away from both Earth and the humans, as their former allies have turned on them. Despite this betrayal, Optimus chooses to persevere, to hold on to his faith, and to continue fighting the good fight until help can come to Earth and relieve the Cybertronians of this new predicament. Optimus will end his message with this line:
Farewell, my brothers and sisters, till we meet again, till all are one.
We then tilt the camera up to the night sky and fade to black as we roll the credits. And that concludes my rewrite for Transformers Dark of the Moon. I do want to let you all know that now that the first Bayverse trilogy rewrite is done, I'm not sure if I'll actually be able to commit to rewriting the second Bayverse trilogy. A lot has happened in my personal and professional life since I started this rewrite series 3 years ago, and I still have a lot of other life and career priorities that I need to take care of, so please don't harass me on when the next Transformers video, or really any video for that matter, is coming out. Because believe it or not guys, I actually have a life and things that I need to take care of. So for those of you who have been super mature, chill, and patient, thank you so much for understanding. It really does mean a lot. In the meantime, if you guys want to know when the next video will be released, then go ahead and subscribe so that you can be the first to know when I drop a new video. If you want early access to my videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, then consider becoming one of my patrons at patreon.com/PhoenixStudios. As always, you guys know that I like to hear feedback from you, and that I'm always trying to improve upon my skills as a writer. So please leave a thoughtful and detailed review down below telling me what you think of this first Bayverse trilogy rewrite now that it is completely done. My original goal was to help the Bayverse films reach their full potential by focusing just as much attention on character development and story arcs as the original film did on the action. So I did that by drawing some inspiration from the G1 cartoons to help make these Transformers adaptations feel fresh but familiar. So let me know if you think I succeeded. I'm also considering posting a behind the scenes video where I talk about my process for rewriting the Transformers movies and where I got my inspirations from and why I made the decisions that I did. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click on the link down below, where it will take you to a post on my community page where you can submit any questions you have for me on how I made the first Transformers trilogy rewrite and why I made certain decisions with the story and the characters. I would like to take a moment to thank you all for your support and for watching this series, and I will catch you guys next time. Till all are one. Oh yeah, and by the way, I did a quick check on my YouTube analytics, and apparently 79% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed. So all I gotta say is, bruh, do your boy a favor. Alright, anyways, have a good one.